Before we get started on the Dharma talk, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Good afternoon, dear Sangha, dear Venerable Abbots. So we are continuing the Lotus Sutra. We are on chapter 14? 15? Oops. I read the wrong chapter then. So chapter 15, emerging from the earth. Okay. That's fine. I got this. So emerging from the earth. So sorry, give me a second since I read the wrong chapter. So chapter 15, Emerge in the Earth, is another chapter that describes the lifespan of the Buddha and the kind of immortality of Buddhahood. So in the beginning of this chapter, if I remember correctly, is when bodhisattvas from other Buddha lands came to the assembly of the Buddha and his disciples because he was teaching the Lotus Sutra. And so typically in the Lotus Sutra, it's mentioned that whenever the Lotus Sutra is being taught in any world, in any place, that Buddhas and Bodhisattvas from the 10 directions will come to that place, to that assembly, to listen to the Lotus Sutra. And so in this case, when the Buddha was teaching the Lotus Sutra, there were bodhisattvas from other lands that came and also listened to the sutra. And then when these bodhisattvas came, they kind of made a vow to the Buddha at the time, saying that we will stay in this world in order to help teach and propagate the Lotus Sutra. That we will make a vow to stay here and be bodhisattvas of this world in order to help the people and the beings to read, recite, and teach the Lotus Sutra. And so when that vow was made by these visiting bodhisattvas, the Buddha was like, thanks, but no thanks, essentially. So he said, the Buddha, in his formal way, said that, I appreciate you coming to listen to the sutra and wanting to propagate and learn it and spread it around. However, I have my own bodhisattvas that are able to help maintain and teach and propagate the Lotus Sutra in this world. I thank you, but no thank you. I don't need your help. I have my own people, basically, is what he was trying to say. And so after he made that proclamation, then numerous uncalculable numbers of bodhisattvas emerged from the earth, hence title of this chapter, Emerging from the Earth. And so there were hundreds of millions of kotis of bodhisattvas emerging from the earth. And when they were emerging from the earth, Bodhisattva Maitreya at the time, who is also prophesied to be the next Buddha, who is also known for entering deep samadhi, deep meditation, and going to different realms of existence in other Buddha lands to listen to the Dharma from those Buddhas and those Bodhisattvas. And so when when he travels, he makes friends, right? He is acquainted with the different Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of other worlds. But when these Bodhisattvas emerge from the earth, he thought to himself, me being a bodhisattva that travels everywhere and knows everyone and knows who's who and what they teach, these are unique bodhisattvas that I've never seen before. Like, why don't I know these bodhisattvas? Where have they come from? And so Maitreya asked the Buddha just that. He asked, who are these bodhisattvas? Where did they come from? Who is the Buddha that taught them? What sutras do they practice? What dutta practices, spiritual practices, do they uphold and maintain? And so the Buddha told them that these are my bodhisattvas. I taught and converted them into the bodhisattvas that they are now. And I've taught incalculable hundreds of thousands of millions of bodhisattvas. So they are all my disciples. And so Maitreya kind of thought to himself and was like, this looks suspicious. Why? He was like, this is sus. He thought, why are these bodhisattvas who are numerous and old, but the Buddha is pretty young? How, in what span of time, how did the Buddha in his 80 years have enough time to teach and convert these millions of bodhisattvas, right? And then Maitreya brought up the example saying that the Buddha is like this. It is as if I were to point to a 25-year-old and to a 100-year-old man and say, this 25-year-old sired this old man. He is my father. And the old man would be like, yes, this 25-year-old is my father, and this 100-year-old is my son. So he was making that comparison that these bodhisattvas are hundreds of years old, but you're only 80. Like, in what span of time were you able to teach them? And so, in my own study and practice of the sutra, and I recall, I don't know how long it was, but I recall when I was first contemplating on the sutra and writing my notations and commentary, I came to the realization that this chapter reminds me a lot of quantum physics. So I'm a big fan of physics in general, but quantum physics specifically, quantum entanglement, to be even more specific. So if we, quick summary of quantum entanglement is, we have two particles, right? Two subatomic particles. They can be hundreds and millions of billions of light years away. But whatever happens to one particle instantaneously affects the other, right? They both at the same time change and do whatever the other one is doing, right? There's no fractions of seconds of gap. There's no delay. It's instantaneously. Both particles are have this change, right? And so in this chapter as well, or in the entire sutra, it's mentioned that the Buddha has his emanation bodies appear, coming from all different worlds to come in and listen to the sutra, to see many treasures Buddha, who also appeared in a couple of chapters prior, to listen to the Lotus Sutra. And so these emanation bodies of the Buddha are in all these other different Buddha lands and all these other different worlds and dimensions and whatever you want to call it, right? So to me, when I was contemplating, I was like, that's basically quantum entanglement, right? Because when he's teaching the Buddha here in this world, his emanation body is billions of miles away or in different lands or whatever, is also doing the same thing. And the reason why we can say that these bodhisattvas that emerge from the earth are so vastly older than the Buddha is because in whatever realm of existence we are in, and whatever time period, right? Because Buddhahood, enlightenment, transcends space and time, right? It doesn't, time is something that we made up to distinguish change, right? To recognize change. So time is created to recognize change. But in the ultimate dimension of things, there is no time. Time is just relative. Time is just something that we give a title to make distinctions of what time it is, or how old I am, or how far a distance is, right? But enlightenment and the ascended mind of an enlightened being transcends that. And so the Buddha is able and capable of teaching in a million different places and a million different times simultaneously, right? So he can be anywhere and everywhere at the same time. So I know it's a very complicated explanation. That's the best way I can think of how to explain this chapter from a physics standpoint. But that's essentially what the Buddha says, right? Without the quantum entanglement piece. But at the same time, I think that's pretty profound because almost 2,600 years ago, the Buddha was already in his way explaining quantum physics to us before we came up with the word quantum physics. But it just shows that enlightenment does not require, or enlightenment does not use time as a measure, right? Because we can say our lifespan of 100 years is extremely long, right? We can say we've lived 100 years, and we're like, wow, you're a century old. You know what I mean? Like, that's a long time from our relative perspective. But in a cosmic perspective, 100 years is nothing. 100 years, you can't even travel from here to the end of our solar system in 100 years, right? So it's pocket change. Not even pocket change, it's pocket dust, right? And so if we say 100 years is a long time, but in a cosmic scale, 100 years is nothing, then in the chapters when the Buddha mentions or predicts Buddhahood for his disciples and said, you know, in 5 kalpas or in 10 kalpas, you'll be such and such Buddha in such and such land, right? There's some debate of what a kalpa measure is in the Buddhist field, but to me, I view a kalpa, which if we look at the definition of a kalpa, it just says an infinite amount of time. Well, that's not good enough for me. So for me, a kalpa is one universe, an age of the universe. So as of right now, our universe is 13 point something billion years old, right? So from the birth of a universe to its end, because our universe will end eventually, right? Eventually we'll run out of energy and things to eat up. So whatever theory of the universe's death you want to believe in, whether it's the cosmic crunch or the great freeze or whatever theory you want to use, there's an end, right? And so from its beginning to its end, to me, is one kalpa. That's how I take a kalpa, how I define a kalpa. So in that time, in that space, in that time, that's trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of years old, right? It's an unfathomable amount of time. We can't even imagine that number. It's so vast. So when we say, or when the Buddha is predicting that you'll become a Buddha in 5 kalpas, 10 kalpas, 50 kalpas, and your lifespan will be 10 kalpas long, and your Dharma will last for this many kalpas, imagine the amount of time that is. Right? We can't imagine it. That's the fun part about it. To me, that's fun. To be able to have a number that you can't even imagine is intriguing to me. But the point is that regardless of what time is and how we view time, the prediction of Buddhahood for all his disciples and for all of us is guaranteed. So we are all guaranteed to eventually become Buddhists, eventually to become enlightened. Now, there is a difference between being enlightened and being fully enlightened, okay? Buddhahood, becoming a Buddha, is being fully enlightened. But you can still become enlightened without becoming a Buddha. So you can either become enlightened in one of the first four levels of enlightenment, right? The Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, and Arhat, the stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arhat. Or it can be enlightened as a bodhisattva. So there are different methods and ways and levels of enlightenment. But becoming enlightened from our human perspective, 100 years, 1,000 years, 1,000 lifetimes, 100 lifetimes, seems like a really long time. But from a cosmic scale, that's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a second. Right? It's not even what's the word I'm looking for? It's shorter than the length of a breath, right, in a cosmic scale. You will become a Buddha in one breath worth of the universe. It's really not that long of a time, really. And so a lot of the time, there's a lot of times where I hear people say that to become enlightened is such a hard thing to do. And it is. It's not easy to become enlightened. It's also not actually difficult. What requires us to become enlightened is simply our dedication to becoming enlightened, right? The same way you put in dedication to go to school, to get grades, to graduate with a good degree, to get a good job. You work your way through your job to work up. Then you eventually get married and have kids. You raise your kids and do all this. All that requires work, no? Do you just wake up in the morning, all of a sudden you've graduated with a master's degree, or all of a sudden you have 5 children, or you're a CEO of a company? No, it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a glimpse of a second. It requires work and effort to get those things. And so if you want to be successful in life, you have to put in the effort to be successful. If you want to be successful in your spiritual practice, then you have to put in the effort to be successful in your spiritual practice. You're not going to become enlightened just by wanting to become enlightened. What kind of stupidity is that? Having the resolve to become enlightened is also one of the main points of this chapter. Because all the bodhisattvas that came from other lands, the bodhisattvas that emerged from the earth, they all had a very strong initial resolve to cultivate, right? So that initial resolve to cultivate was the fuel that allowed them to practice their dutta practices, which is dutta means spiritual practices, and to attain enlightenment and become bodhisattvas. So the same way that these bodhisattvas had that initial resolve, we too have to have that strong initial resolve, right? And I want to believe, because you're all here listening to me ramble on about this chapter, I hope that you too also have that initial resolve that sparked that curiosity, that sparked that desire to become enlightened, that sparked the desire to want to change your life for the better, to be more peaceful, to be happier, to lessen your life of suffering, to be able to understand and comprehend the Dharma and the practices and all the things that go into our spirituality. And so, because you've had that initial resolve, what happened, or what can happen, is that initial resolve starts to weaken. And because the initial resolve, to me, I would explain the initial resolve the same way as like the honeymoon phase of a new relationship or of a new job, right? Every time we start something new, it's very exciting, we're happy, we're eager to do things, we're eager to show off and to show our best and blah, blah, blah. But after a while, you kind of get into the habit and a routine of things and kind of potentially start to slow down, right? And get a little bit lazy, right? You stop putting so much effort into your work or your relationship like you did in the beginning. And so that is the most common thing that happens, and I see it all the time. And so it's important for you to recognize that decline in your resolve, and to recognize that the spark, the excitement, the curiosity may still be there, but it isn't as strong as it used to be. Are you more dedicated now to your practice than you were when you first started? Are you more, do you have more comprehensive wisdom, right? Do you understand things more? Do things come easy to you? Are you able to understand what meditation is? Are you able to practice meditation? Are you able to understand what the sutras mean? Especially in the Lotus Sutra, it is not straight to the point. It's one of those sutras that kind of dance around different similes and parables and imagery, and it has all these vast imaginary places and beings, right? It has all these really crazy stories that is difficult to take them anything less than face value, right? Because it's talking about different worlds, it's talking about different realms of existence, it's talking about all these cosmic Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and things that emerge from the earth and come from the sky and people flying and floating. Like, it has all these imagery to it that doesn't correspond to our way of modern thinking. And so a lot of times when people first read the Lotus Sutra at face value, it reads like a storybook, honestly, sometimes, right? But it's done that way for a very specific reason, because we have to imagine trying to teach a child something that's comprehensive, right? Or that's kind of an adult topic. So when you're trying to teach an adult topic to a child, you have to basically dumb it down, right? You have to bring it to their level of understanding. You have to use vocabulary that they can understand. You have to use examples that they would understand. You have to use things that's easier for them to comprehend how or what you're trying to explain. And so the Buddha used parable and simile and these different examples of different imagery in order to dumb it down, right? To help you really visualize what he's trying to say. And once you visualize, and it's almost in every chapter at the beginning, right? It'll tell a story about the vastness of the Buddhas and how tall they are and where they come from and all the features and characteristics of these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, right? He wants to put you in a place of visualization so that you can see all this imagery, and then he'll explain what the imagery means. He'll explain what he's trying to tell you, but he wants to put you in a more comfortable, familiar place first. And he does that about all this imagery, right? So same way when we're meeting a new person, for instance, right? At first it may be awkward, there's some shyness there, but once you start to get more comfortable with them, you start being yourself, then it's easier to talk about deeper discussions, right? Versus just asking them, hey, what's your life trauma like, before even saying hello, right? Why are you traumatic? No, you want to ask what they do, you want to ask what their hobbies are, get to know them first, and then you can talk about trauma, right? But you don't go into that deep end right away. You have to ease yourself into it. So the Buddha does the exact same things for us. He eases us into the topic that he's trying to explain with this imagery and visualizations, and then he'll say, okay, you're comfortable, good. So here's the actual teaching. So, which is why the Lotus Sutra is one of those things, because the Lotus Sutra for us in this temple in our tradition is the main sutra. And we chant the Lotus Sutra every single day. And the reason we chant every single day is because, again, when you read it for the very first time at face value, it's gonna look like a storybook. But the more you understand what specific things mean, and the kind of story and the backstory behind those things, then you can say, oh, this reference to this magical being is referencing this type of characteristic that people hold, right? And so I'll use the example of the 6 realms of existence, for example. The 6 realms of existence are the 6 realms that we would be reborn into whenever we live and die. right? So there's 3 higher realms, asuras, devas, and humans. And then there's the 3 lower realms of hungry ghosts, animals, and the hell realm. Now, we can take these realms of existence at face value and see them as physical places we go to after we die, if you want to. I don't see it that way. I see these realms of existence as states of mind that every single one of us goes through, sometimes multiple realms in the same day. So there are days when, just think of your life. Are you happy every single day? Are you content every single day? Are you comfortable every single day? Are you energized every single day? Yeah? Okay, you must be a Buddha then. If not, we still suffer, we still have anxiety, we still get angry, we still get tired, right? We still have greed and jealousy and anger. Well, I get anger all the time. Anger or hatred, right? We have all these different emotions and feelings that arise. And so all these different feelings and emotions and states of mind are these realms of existence. Because there could be a day where it's a really good day, right? Things are working out, things are going the way they're supposed to be, you're happy, you're content, so maybe your mind state is in one of the higher realms of existence. But the very next day, everything could be the total opposite. It's going, down the hole, and things are happening, we feel everything is hellish, nothing is working the way it's supposed to be working, things aren't going the way they're supposed to be going, so now we're in a hell realm, right? And there's other characteristics of, like the hungry ghost, for example. A characteristic of a hungry ghost is someone that is greedy and selfish, that is constantly looking out only for themselves, that are trying to gain things just for themselves, right? And maybe this is us, maybe we recognize that in someone else, right? But regardless, these are states of mind that we constantly go through. So, see, this is why I attempt to not go off track, because then I forget what my point was. Oh, yes, thank you. So, we use the realms of existence as another comparison, right? The Buddha describes these realms of existence and say, hey, you can either do good deeds and build merits and transfer that merit and be born in one of the higher realms, or if you are someone that is greedy and unhelpful and don't benefit others and all these other negative characteristics, then you're going to be born in lower realms of existence, right? But again, depending on how you want to believe these realms of existence, these are just characteristics of what we have to watch out for. That way, when you're doing your everyday life and you're doing your tasks and your job and you're going to school or whatever you're doing, if you're observant enough, if you're aware enough, if you're mindful enough of what is going on in your mind during difficult situations, during happy situations, during sad situations, whatever situation or mood or circumstance that you're in, watch your mind. What is your mind going through? What is your mind thinking of? Where is your mind going? Are you contemplating the situation? Are you thinking it through? Or are you arguing with yourself? Or you're already thinking of what to say in retaliation to someone if they're arguing with you, right? Are you thinking of negative things? Are you thinking of positive things? So we really have to watch our mind, because our mind is what determines the outcome of the situation that we are in. The mind is going to determine what realm of existence you are in. And so if you're someone that is greedy for fame and fortune, right, then your mindset is going to be thinking of, what can I get for me? Who do I have to throw under the bus to get that promotion? What bank do I have to rob in order to get this mansion that I want? watch what we're thinking. Our thoughts are most important of anything else that we do. Because our thought is the very first obstacle or checkpoint that is going to determine what's going to happen next. Everything that you say and do has to stem from a thought first. The thought itself may only last fractions of a second, but it's still time. There's still enough time for you to catch that thought, right? How many times do we hear the phrase, saying before you think, right? We say things all the time before we think about it. But there was some thinking. It just happened earlier. Become more mindful, more aware, and we practice that consistently. Then, when we are in difficult situations, if we're in an argument, or someone's yelling at us, someone's teasing you, or offending you, or whatever it may be, watch your thinking, watch your mind. Where is it going? What is it doing? What is it thinking? How is it working with that situation? Because if you can catch your negative, unwholesome thinking as it's happening before it turns into speech, right? Then you've won. You've stopped the unwholesome negative speech from happening because you've stopped it at the thinking level first. Because if you can stop the thinking level first, then you can recognize that something negative or unwholesome is happening, and you can stop it and transform it. Change it into something that is wholesome, that it is positive. If anything, worst case scenario, you make it at least neutral. That there's no good or no bad to it. There's no hatred, there's no kindness. It just is. Because if you can't stop it at the thought level, then you're going to say it, right? And so you've missed the first checkpoint, and now you've spoken an unwholesome or negative speech. But even though you've said it, that's still a checkpoint that you can still stop that speech at. Even if you're mid-sentence, even if you're mid-word, even if you just open your mouth and said the word, and you were able to be mindful and aware enough to catch it at that point, you've also won. But if you didn't, and you've said the words and now it's out, well, you've sped through that checkpoint. You failed the second checkpoint. But we saw the third and final checkpoint, which is the action. So if you are saying that unwholesome negative thing, let's say it's in an argument, right? Now, that unwholesome thought turns into speech. And that unwholesome speech can now turn into action. So maybe now you're so angry at this person, you want to retaliate physically. So maybe you throw something at them. Maybe you hit them. Maybe you do some unwholesome action. And so you have all these checkpoints. You have all these opportunities to maintain yourself, to discipline yourself, to keep, to hold yourself accountable. Because you can be practicing the Buddhism and meditation for 2, 3, 4, 5 decades, but you can still be a terrible person. Practicing Buddhism does not make you better. As a monk does not make me better than you. You can be a much more better practitioner than I am, right? And so what's going to alleviate your suffering, what's going to transcend the suffering that we're all going through into the transcendence of peace and happiness and liberation is your own thought, speech, and actions. By eradicating the 3 poisons of greed, anger, and ignorance. That is the only way we're going to benefit ourselves in order for you to benefit others. So all of us here are bodhisattvas in training, right? And so we have to use skillful means of a bodhisattva in order to help ourselves, in order to help others. What would a bodhisattva do in a situation of anger? If someone cuts you off in the road, what would a bodhisattva do? What would the Buddha do? Right? Instead of, I don't want to say it. Ask yourself, because even in someone cutting off on the road is probably the easiest example I can think of. But someone that cuts you off on the road is a really great opportunity to see what type of person you are. Because if you're driving down the road and someone cuts you off, a normal person would get angry. They would yell at the other person, they would flip them off, curse them out, right? Maybe even try to speed and catch up to them to cut them off too, to retaliate. But what potentiality does that have? If you sped up and try to cut them off, because in your moment of hatred and anger and delusion, essentially, you may cause an accident to happen. You may hurt yourself, you may hurt others, you may kill yourself, you may kill others because of your 2 seconds of anger if someone cut you off. Is that a loss of life worth it? What makes the situation worse is we don't even know why that person cut us off. There could be someone dying in their back seat, bleeding out, and they need to get to the hospital. Someone could be giving birth. Someone could be needing to really use the restroom really badly. Right? So we don't know the reason for that cutoff. Yeah, maybe they could just be a terrible person. In most cases, usually, I would like to think that that's not the case. Whether they're holding in, they just can't. Whether someone's bleeding to death in the background, in the back seat, maybe someone's trying to give birth, we do not know. And the fact that you do not know does not give you the right to make something up in your mind, to validate your reason to cut them off too. That's also another big topic, is not knowing. Not knowing is the definition of the ignorance in Buddhism. Right? It's the first of the 3 poisons, ignorance. Ignorance in Buddhism simply just means not knowing. Not knowing the true reality of things. Not seeing the true phenomena in our reality. Not seeing things as they are. That is not knowing. That is ignorance. And until you know, there is no reason for a reaction to be made. If you want to follow that person that cut you off and wait until you stop, until they stop, they get to their destination, then you can get out and ask them, hey, why'd you cut me off? Oh, because I'm peeing my pants right now because you won't let me go inside the house. Okay, that's a valid reason. Thank you. Sorry, I followed you home. So until you know the reason, there's no reason for you to get angry or upset or any other emotion or feeling of someone else. So until you know, an assumption is not knowing. And we make assumptions all the time. When we see a car accident in the middle of the road, right, we always assume, we make assumptions of what happened, right? And so there's traffic builds up because everyone just wants to rubberneck and make their own story of what happened. How many people are involved? How many cars are involved? What kind of car is it? Who hit who? Was it a woman? Was it a child? Was it an old person? Do they have a license? Do they not have a license? We make all these stupid judgments and assumptions to make ourselves feel better, to validate what has happened in this car accident. We simply just don't know. So why does the details matter? How does knowing the details even affect you? It doesn't. We just have stupid curiosity. That's what I call it. Wanting to know something that you don't need to know is called stupid curiosity. Who cares how the accident happened? Who cares how many people are involved? The only thing you need to know is accident has happened, and just hoping that no one got hurt, right? Because other than that, there's nothing else you can do, right? way off topic. But the point of this chapter is to recognize that our cultivation of this practice has to be maintained, right? We have to maintain that excitement that you've had at the beginning of learning Buddhism, or whatever else it is in your life you do. Maintain that cultivation, maintain that initial resolve to want to attain enlightenment. I'm going to stick within the realm of Buddhism here. So if you want to become enlightened, if you truly want to eradicate your suffering, to be happy, to be free, because that's essentially what liberation is being free of the 3 poisons, being free of the 10 fetters, transcending and attaining the 37 factors of enlightenment, transcending and attaining the 10 levels of the Bodhisattva, transcending and attaining the 7 levels of Buddhahood. There's so many stages to go through our practice. And because there's so many stages, that means there time and dedication is required. Because there's dozens of levels and stages of our practice of enlightenment, means that work needs to be put in. Right? The same way when we're born, the first 2 days of birth, you don't apply for a PhD program, right? No. You get older, you learn how to speak, how to say your name, I don't know, what else do children do now? Learn before they go to school. Their address, maybe, the phone numbers of the parents. Then you go to school and you work your way up, right? You go to kindergarten, you go to, first grade, you work your way up through high school. And if you decide to go to college, you go to college. You decide you want to go beyond college, you go to get your master's. Beyond that, you get your PhD. You have to work your way up. You can't just throw someone into a PhD program when they're 10 years old, unless they're like, super genius, which, how many are there in the world? Like a handful. But regardless, traditionally, you work your way up. And when you work your way up, especially in school, you have to maintain your education. You have to maintain the ability to continuously study, to do good, to get good grades, to accomplish your scholastic goals. Likewise, we have to do the same in our practice. You have to maintain that initial resolve and that dedication throughout the practice until you've had those aha moments. Then you can finally breathe. Whether it happens in this lifetime or not, is 100% up to you. Every single one of you have the potential to become a Buddha right here and right now. So the question is, what are you doing about it? And on that, I will end my discussion. Questions, concerns, emotional outbursts?
Quite know how to word this, but you were talking about, when you get to enlightenment, you transcend ignorance, hate, and greed, you transcend the 10 fetters, and it seems like you're sort of perfecting your character. When you say that a person who becomes a Buddha is superior to what you would call a common,
Yes.
because I've often heard people go, I'm only human, I make mistakes, but that's what makes me human, is I make mistakes. But I guess not make mistakes anymore, to realize, I can get past these mistakes, is transcend what we call human?
So I'm going to use the example of the actions of an unenlightened person and an action of an enlightened person. So as human beings, we traverse this world according to our karma, our causes and conditions, right? causes and effects. As humans, we are essentially afraid of the effects of our causes, right? We do something and we're worried about the consequences or the outcomes, right? So we're thinking of the finality of our actions, whereas an enlightened person is afraid of creating causes. They don't even want to create causes, so they don't have effects, right? They don't want to, whether it's good effects or bad effects, they don't even do anything in order to create causes or effects. But we're afraid of the effects. We're afraid of whatever actions we do has positive or negative consequences. That's our fear. And so someone who's enlightened, I mean, it's, how are they not better than someone that's not enlightened? Someone who's enlightened, a Buddha is still a human being, but they're just better than you, essentially. They're better than you because they were able to eradicate what you have not been able to eradicate. They've been able to achieve what you have not been able to achieve. They've been able to realize what you have not yet realized. The same way you look up to elders or to teachers or to people who are proficient in the profession. You look up to them, we rely on them because they know better than us. They know more than us. They've accomplished more than us. So we view the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas the same way. So yeah, they're still human, but they're just better. They don't make mistakes.
I have a second part of that. You said one person's they're not concerned about the causes. So would the average person even notice an enlightened person?
Nope. Only an enlightened person can recognize another enlightened person. Yeah, one of us could be enlightened and we wouldn't even know about it. What is the goal of the Bodhisattva? Let me ask you that. To enlighten others, correct. So, one of us could be Bodhisattvas doing just that in their own way, right? The sutras say there's 84,000 different Dharma doors. That means there's 84,000 different ways that we can become enlightened. So a Bodhisattva can use one of those 84,000 ways, their own parable and simile, their own ways of enlightenment to help you. You just don't know that they're Bodhisattvas. You don't know that they're enlightened.
So the meditation, these doors open to them and they see their own way of becoming enlightened? Because maybe no two are the same? Is that what you're saying?
No two what?
No two ways of becoming enlightened are the same? Like it's different for everyone?
Yes. Yes. So you may become enlightened through doing good deeds, right? Gaining merit and gaining virtue through those good deeds of helping others. You can become enlightened through that channel, whereas someone else can become enlightened through meditation. Someone else can become enlightened through chanting. Someone else could be enlightened by doing the dishes, right? There's a story, it's not in the sutra, but there's a story of in the early days of the Buddha, there were two brothers. Can't remember their name, but one of them was really smart. He was very virtuous, and he memorized all the precepts, he memorized all the dharmas, he was very good. His brother was the exact opposite. He was very dull, and he couldn't even remember one line of sutra, right? And so the Buddha essentially told him, go to the nunnery to teach them. And he's like, teach them? I can't even memorize one line of sutra. How do you want me to teach them? He's like, just go to the nunnery and teach the nuns. So because he can't remember Dharma, all he did, he went and just started sweeping the ground. He was just sweeping and sweeping and sweeping. And he became enlightened. And the nuns saw that, and the nuns in the assembly that witnessed him sweeping also became enlightened. And they went back to the Buddha and said, this is the best teacher we've ever had. All he did was sweep. So you can become enlightened in a fathomable number of ways, right? It's not, of course, just the act of sweeping isn't going to do it. There has to be something going on in the mind, right? Like, that's why you have the gathas, right? Whenever you do something, there's a gatha. So it's that gatha is what causes you to contemplate in order to have that realization. So his gatha time was sweeping my defilements. Sweeping my defilements away, something along those lines, right? So basically telling himself that he needs to cleanse his defilements in order to become enlightened. So he's sweeping his defilements away. He became enlightened. There's several other random, very mundane stories of people becoming enlightened doing mundane things. So it's not impossible. Nowadays, I feel like it is, but yeah. There's more to that, but already took too much time. Any other questions? You have 1 minute. Okay, if there's no other questions, then we will transfer the merit and go to chanting. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha Namo Shakyamuni Buddha Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. For any positive karmic action we have accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merit to all sentient beings and wish them full enlightenment. Incense in the censer now is burning, all the Dharma realm in every place, auspicious clouds appearing, our sincere intention thus fulfilling, as all Buddhas now show their perfect body, homage to the incense cloud canopy, Bodhisattva and great Bodhisattva. Gratitude we offer this incense to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space and time. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting our careful efforts, our wholehearted mindfulness, and the fruit, understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings Kyenza Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, may we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. Marriage to the eternally abiding Buddhas, the supreme Dharma, and sagely Sangha throughout the Dharma realm and the of empty space and 3 periods of time. To the fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha Maitreya, honored future Buddha Manjushri, great wisdom Bodhisattva, universal great conduct Bodhisattva, all Dharma guarding Deva Bodhisattvas, and the glorious mountain assembly of Buddha and Bodhisattvas. To Amitabha Buddha in the land of ultimate bliss, Avalokiteshvara, great compassion, Bodhisattva, great strength, Bodhisattva, earth sword, great vow, Bodhisattva, and the assembly of great pure sea like Bodhisattva. Unsurpassed, profound, and wonderful. It's difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of eons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold it, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Namo Shakyamuni Pundarika Sutra. Namo Sadharma Pundarika Sutra. Namo Sadharma Pundarika Sutra. Let's go to tab 6, page 108. Lotus assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo Lotus assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo Lotus assembly and Bodhisattvas. Sutra of the Lotus of the Wonderful Law, Chapter 19, Benefits of the Teacher of the Law. At the time the Buddha said to the Bodhisattva and Mahasattva, constant exertion, if in the midst of the great assembly someone with a fearless mind preaches this Lotus Sutra, listen to the benefits he will receive. Such a person gains 100 benefits of superior eyes. As a result of these adornments, his eyes become extremely pure. With the eyes received up from his parents, he will view all the 3,000 worlds, their inner and outer parts, their Mount Meru, their Sumeru, the lying mountains, and all the other mountains and forests, the waters of their great seas, rivers and streams, down as far as the Avicii, up to the summit of being heaven, and he will see all the living beings in their midst, though he has not yet gained heavenly. The power of his physical eyes will be such as this: with the ears received at birth from one's parents, pure and without stain or defilement. With these ordinary, one can hear the sounds of the 3,000 worlds: elephant, horse, carriage, ox sounds, bell, chime, conch, drum sounds, lute and harp sounds, pipe and flute sound of pure and beautiful singing. One can hear without becoming attached to it the countless varieties of human voices. One can hear and understand all the voices of heavenly beings, subtle and wonderful song sounds, and one can hear men and women's voices, the voices of young boys and young girls in the midst of hills, rivers, and steep valleys, the voice of the Kalavinka, the Jivaka, and other birds. All these sounds he will from the tormented multitudes of hell, the sounds of various kinds of suffering and sounds of hungry spirits driven by famine and thirst as they search for food and drink, of the asuras who live on the shores of the great sea, when they talk of themselves or emit loud cries. He who preaches the law can dwell safely among all these, hearing these many voices from afar without ever impairing his faculties of hearing. The worlds of the 10 directions, when beasts and birds call to one another, this person who preaches the law hears them all from where he in the Brahma heaven, and above the light sound heaven, the all pure heaven, and up to the summit of being heaven, the sounds of the voices talking there, the teacher of the law dwelling here can hear them all the multitudes of monks and all the nuns, whether they are citing the scriptures or preaching them for the sake of others. The teacher of the dwelling here can hear them all, and when there are bodhisattvas who read and recite the sutra teachings or preach them for the sake of or select passages and explain their meaning, the sounds of their voices. He can hear them all when the Buddha's great sages and venerable ones teach and convert living beings in the midst of the great assembly, expounding and preaching the subtle and wonderful law. One who upholds the Lotus Sutra can hear them all the sounds in the inner and outer parts of the 1,000 billion full worlds, down to the Vici, up to the summit of being heaven. He can hear all these sounds and never impair his faculties of hearing, because the faculties of his ears are so keen. He can distinguish and understand all these sounds. One who upholds the Lotus Sutra, though he has not yet gained heavenly ears, can do this simply through the ears he was born with. Such are the benefits of such a person's nose will be such that throughout this world he will be able to detect and identify all manner of odors, fragrant or foul, sumana and jatika, flower, tanampatra and sandalwood, the scent of aloes and cassia, the scent of various flowers, and he will know the scent of living beings, the scent of men and women. Though his creature of the lot dwells far off, he will sense and know where the persons are. Wheel turning kings of great authority, lesser wheel turners and their sons, their ministers and palace attendants, he will detect theirs and know where they are. Precious treasures adorning the body, ladies of wheel turning kings, he will detect their scent and know where they are. Ornaments that adorn the bodies of persons, clothing and necklaces, all kinds of basins. Detecting these, he will know who the wearers are. When heavenly beings walk or sit, amuse themselves, or carry out magical transformations, the upholder of the load, detecting their scent, can know all this, blossoms and fruits of various trees, and the aroma of butter, oil. The upholder of the sutra dwelling here knows where all these are, deep in the mountain, in the sea, places where blossoms of sandalwood tree unfold. Living beings are in the midst. By detecting the scent, he can know all this. Living beings, iron encircling mountains in the great seas or in the ground. The upholder of the sutra detects their sins and knows where all of them are. When male and female asuras and their retinues of followers fight with one or amuse themselves, he detects the scent and knows all this. On the broad plains and narrow places, lions, elephants, tigers, wolves, buffaloes, and water buffaloes. By detecting their scent, he knows where they are. When a woman is pregnant, determine if the child is male or female, if it will lack normal faculties for being human. By detecting the scent, he can know all this, and through this power to detect sense, he knows when a woman has first become pregnant, if the pregnancy will be successful or not, if she will be delivered safely of a healthy child. Through his power to detect sense, he knows the thoughts of men and women, if their minds are stained by desire, ignorance, or anger, and he knows if practicing good hoards of goods that are stored in the earth, gold, silver, and precious treasures, things heaped in bronze vessels. By detecting the scent, he can tell where they all are. Various kinds of necklaces whose value cannot be praised. By the scent, he knows if they are precious or worthless, where they came from. They above mandaravas, manjushakas, padikataka trees, detecting their scent, he knows all these. The palaces and the heavens above in their separate grades, grades of upper, intermediate, and lower, adorned with numerous jewels, wow, protecting their sentinels, them all the heavenly gardens and groves, the super mansions and quarries, the hall of the wonderful law, and those seeking pleasure in their midst, detecting their sentinels, them all in heavenly beings, listen to the law or indulge the five desires, coming and going, walking, sitting, lying down, detecting. He knows them all, the robes worn by heavenly women, when adorned with lovely flowers and perfumes, they whirl and circle in enjoyment, detecting their sentinels, them all, thus extending his arm upward to the Brahma heaven by detecting their sentinels, all those who in meditation or emerge from meditation in the light, sound, and all pure heavens, and up to the summit of being, those born, those who have departed, detecting their sentinels, them all, the multitude of monks diligent at all times with regard to the law, whether sitting or walking around or reading or reciting the sutra, sometimes under the forest trees, concentrating their energy, sitting in meditation. The upholder of the sutra detects their sentinels, where all of them are bodhisattvas, firm and unbending in will, sitting in meditation or reading the sutras or preaching the law for by detecting their sentinels, them all, the world honored one, present on and respected by all, pitying the multitude, preaching the law by detecting their sentinels, them all, living beings who in the Buddha's presence hear the sutra, and all rejoice who practice as the law prescribes by detecting their sentinels, them, although he has acquired the nose plus bodhisattva of the law of no outflows, the upholder of the sutra before then will acquire a nose with the marks described here. The faculties of this person's tongue will be so he will never experience any bad taste, but all that he eats will become like sweet dew. With his deep, pure, and wonderful voice he will preach the law in the great assembly, employing causes, conditions, and sim to lead and guide the minds of living beings. All who hear him will rejoice and offer him their finest alms. Heavenly beings, dragons, yakshas, as well as asuras and others will all approach him with reverent minds, and to come to hear the law. If this preacher of the law wishes to use his wonderful voice to fill the 3,000 worlds, he can do so at will, turning king, great and small, and their 1,000 sons and retinue press their palms together with reverent minds, and constantly come to hear and accept the law. Heavenly beings, dragons, yakshas, rakshasas, and pishakas, likewise with rejoicing minds will constantly to bring alms. The heavenly king Brahma, the devil king, the deities, freedom and great freedom, all the multitudes of heavenly beings will constantly come to where he is. The Buddhas and their disciples, hearing the sound of him preaching the law, will keep him constantly in their thoughts and guard him, and at times show themselves for his. One upholds the Lotus Sutra, his body will be very pure, like pure lapis. Us holy living beings will all delight to see it, and it will be like a pure bright mirror in which forms and shapes are all reflect. The bodhisattvas in his pure body will see all that is in the world. He alone will see brightly what is not visible. Others within the 3,000 worlds, all the mass of growing creatures, heavenly and human beings, asuras, hell dwellers, spirits, beasts, their forms and shapes in this way will all be reflected in his body. The palaces of the various heavens, upward to the summit of being, circling mountains, the mountains Meru and Mahameru, the great seas and their waters, all will be reflected in his body. The Buddhas and voice hearers, Buddhas and about flows because of the purity of his ordinary body. All things will be reflected. The minds of these persons will be pure, bright, keen, without stain or defilement, and with these wonderful mental faculties they will understand the superior, intermediate, and inferior law, hearing no more than one verse. They will master measurable principles and be able to preach them step by step in accordance with Allah for a month, 4 months, or a year. All the living beings in the inner and outer parts of this world, heavenly dragons, humans, yaksha, spirits, those in the 6 realms of existence of the Lotus Sutra as their reward, will know all these in an instant. The countless Buddhas of the 10 directions, adorned with the marks of 100 blessings for the sake of living beings, preach the law, and such persons hearing it will be they will ponder immeasurable principles ways, yet from start to finish never forget or make a mistake, because they are upholders of the Lotus Sutra. They will understand the characteristics of all phenomena, accord with principles, recognizing their proper order, be masters of names and words, and expound and preach things just as they understand. With these persons preaching all the law of former Buddhas, and because they expound this law, they have no fear before the assembly. Such is the purity of the mental faculties of these upholders of the Lotus. Though they have not yet attained freedom from outflows, before that they will manifest the marks described here. While these persons uphold the sutra, they will dwell safely on rare ground by all living beings, delighted in love and respect, able to employ 1,000, 10,000 varieties of apt and skillful words to make distinctions. Sutra chapter 20, the Bodhisattva never disparaging. At the time the Buddha said to the Bodhisattva and Mahasattva, gainer of great authority, in the past there was a Buddha named Awesome Sound, king of immeasurable supernatural powers, and with leading and guiding one and all heavenly and human beings, dragon spirits joined in offering him alms. After this Buddha had entered extinct, when his law was about to expire, there was a Bodhisattva named never disparaging. The 4 kinds of believers at the time scrutinize and adhere to law. Bodhisattva never disparaging would go to where they were and speak to them, saying, I would never disparage you, for you are practicing the way, and all of you will become Buddhas. When the people heard this, they gibed at him, cursed and reviled him, but the Bodhisattva never despaired. For all this with patience, when his offenses had been wiped out and his life was able to hear the sutra, and his 6 faculties were purified because of his transcendental powers, his lifespan was extended, and for the sake of others he preached the sutra far and wide. The many persons who adhere to the law receive teaching and conversion from this Bodhisattva, who caused them to dwell in the Buddha way. Whenever disparaging's life ended, he encountered numberless Buddhas, and because he preached the sutra, he gained immeasurable blessings. Bit by bit he acquired benefits and quickly completed the Buddha way. Never disparaging, who lived at the time, was none other than myself, and the 4 kinds first who adhere to the law, then who heard never disparaging say, you will become Buddhas, and through the causes thus created encountered numberless Buddhas. They are here in this assembly, a group of 500 Bodhis, and the 4 kinds of believers, men and women of pure faith, who now in my presence listen to the law. In previous existences I encountered these persons who listen to and accept the sutra, the foremost in the law, unfolding and teaching people last one can hear this Lotus Sutra. 10,000 kalpas and inconceivable time will pass before the Buddha's world honored ones preach the suit. Therefore its practitioners, after the Buddha has entered extinction, when they hear a sutra like this, should entertain no doubts or perplex it. Should with a single mind preach the sutra far and wide, age countering Buddhas and quickly completing the Buddha way. Chapter 21, supernatural powers of the dust come on. At the time the Buddha spoke the superior practices Bodhisattva, the others in the great assembly of Bodhisattvas, saying the Buddha saviors of the world abide in their great transcendental powers, and in order to please living beings they display immeasurable supernatural powers. Their tongues reach to the Brahma, their bodies emit countless beams of light. For the sake of those who seek the Buddha way, they manifest these things that are rarely seen. The sound of the Buddhas coughing, the sound of them snapping their fingers is heard throughout the lands in the 10 direct. Cause after the Buddha has passed into extinction, there will be those who can uphold this sutra. The Buddhas are all delighted and manifest immeasurable supernatural powers because they wish to entrust the sutra. They praise and extol the person who accepts and upholds it, and though they should do so measurable kalpas, they could never exhaust their praises. The benefits gained by such a person are boundless and inexhaustible, like the vast sky in the 10 direct, that no one who can uphold this sutra has in effect already seen me, and likewise has seen many treasures, Buddha and the Buddhas that are emanations of my body, and he also sees me today as I teach and convert the Bodhis. One who can uphold this sutra causes me in my emanations and many treasures, Buddha who has already entered extinction, all to be filled with joy. The Buddhas who are present in the 10 direct, and those that pass in future ages, he will see them to offer alms to them and cause them to be filled with joy. These secret essentials of the gained by the Buddhas who sat in the place of practice, who can gain them to be forelong. One who can uphold this sutra will delight in endlessly expounding the principles of the various doctrines and their names and phrases, like a wind in the open sky, moving everywhere without hindrance or block. After the dust has passed into extinction, this person will know the sutras preached by the Buddha, their causes and conditions and their proper sequence, and will preach them truthfully in accordance with principles. The light of the sun and moon can banish all obscurity and gloom, so this person as he passes through the world can wipe out the darkness of living beings, causing immeasurable numbers of bodhisattvas in the end to dwell in the single view. Therefore a person of wisdom, hearing how keen are the benefits to be gained after I have passed into should accept and uphold this sutra. Such a person certainly and without doubt will attain the Buddha way. Chapter 22, entrustment. At the time Shakyamuni Buddha rose from his dharma seat and manifest great supernatural powers. With his right hand patted the heads of the immeasurable bodhisattvas and mahasattvas, and spoke these words: for immeasurable hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, millions of asamkaya kalpa have practiced this hard to attain lahavanutara samyak sambodhi. Now I entrust it to you. You must single-mindedly propagate this law abroad, causing its benefits to spread far and wide. 3 times he patted the bodhisattvas and mahas, spoke these words: for immeasurable hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, millions of asamkaya kalpas I have practiced this hard to attain lahavanutara samyak sambodhi. Now I entrust it to you. You must accept, uphold, read, recite, and broadly propagate this thing. All living beings the wisdom of the Buddha, the wisdom of the thus come one, the wisdom that comes of itself, the thus come one is a great gift. Living beings, you for your part should respond by learning this law of the thus come one. You must not be stingy or begrudging in future ages. If there are good men and good women who have faith in the wisdom of the thus come one, you should preach and expound the lotus for them so that others may hear and understand it. For in this way you can cause them to gain the Buddha wisdom. If there are living beings who do not believe and accept it, you should use some of the other profound doctrines of the thus come one to teach and bring joy to them. If you do all this, then you will have repaid the debt of gratitude that when the Bodhisattvas and Mahasattvas heard the Buddha speak these words, they all experienced a great joy and filled their bodies with and before they bent their bodies, bowed their heads, pressed their palms together, and facing the Buddha, raised their voices in unison, saying, "We will respectfully carry out all these things just as the world-honored one has commanded. We beg the world-honored one to have no concern on this account." The multitude of Bodhisattvas and Mahasattvas repeated these words 3 times, raising their voices in unison and saying, "We will respectfully carry out all these things just as the world-honored one has commanded. Therefore we beg the world-honored to have no concern on this account." At the time Shakyamuni Buddha calls the Buddhas who were emanations of his body, had come from the 10 directions to return each one to his original land, saying each of these Buddhas may proceed at his own pleasure. The tower of many treasures Buddha may also return to its former position. He spoke these words, the immeasurable emanation Buddhas from the 10 directions who were seated on lion seats under the jewel trees, as well as many treasures Buddha's superior practices and a great multitude of boundless asamkhayas of Bodhisattva, Shariputra, and the other voice hearers, and the 4 kinds of believers, and the heavenly and human beings, asuras and others, and all the world's hearing Buddha has said were all filled with great joy. Let's go to tab 9, page 171. Artabda prajna paramita da bodhisattva avarokita, while moving in the deep course of prajna paramita, shed light on the 5 skandhas and found them equally empty. After this penetration he overcame ill-being. Listen, Shariputra, form is emptiness, and its emptiness is not other than form. The same is true with feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. Listen, Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They are neither produced nor destroyed, neither defiled nor immaculate, neither increasing nor decreasing. Therefore in emptiness there is neither form nor feelings, no perceptions nor mental formations, nor consciousness, no eye or ear or nose or tongue or body or form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realms of elements, no interdependent origins, and no extinction of them, no ill-being, no cause of ill-being, no end of ill-being, and no path, no wonders, no attainment, because there is no attainment. The Bodhisattvas ground in prajna paramita find no obstacles for their minds. Having no obstacles, they overcome fear, liberating themselves forever from illusion. Sing perfect nirvana, all Buddhas in the past, present, and future arrive at anuttara samyak sambuddhi. Therefore one should know that perfect understanding is the highest mantra, the unequal mantra, the destroyer of ill-being, the incorrupt truth. The mantra of prajna paramita should therefore be proclaimed. Gate gate pada gate pada samgate bodhi swaha gate gate pada gate samgate bodhi swaha gate gate pada samgate bodhi swaha. Jinn beings are limitless. I vow to liberate them. Afflictions are endless. I vow to eradicate them. Teachings are infinite. I vow to learn. Buddhahood is supreme. I vow to attain it. I vow that from now until the end of my life and in all future lives until I attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, that I will help all sentient beings in all realms of existence and their suffering. Namo thus come one worthy of offerings of proper and universal knowledge, perfect in understanding and skillful in leaving the world through liberation, perfect and complete understanding of all worldly dharma, unsurpassed, attaining hero, teacher of gods and deep Buddha, the world honored one. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Om Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Shittigatva Bodhisattva, Namo Shittigatva Bodhisattva, Namo Shittigatva Bodhisattva, Namo Manjushri Bodhisattva, Namo Manjushri Bodhisattva, Namo Manjushri Bodhisattva, Namo Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva, Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva, Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva, Namo Great Pure Sea-like Bodhisattvas, Namo Great Pure Sea-like Bodhisattvas, Namo Great Pure Sea-like Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva Guarding Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva Guarding Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva Guarding Bodhisattvas. Take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. In the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world dwelling. The refuge of Dharma, I learn to open followers on the path of transformation, dwelling the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. King, refuge in the Buddha, in myself I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of taking refuge in the Dharma. In myself I aspire to help all fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation, taking refuge in the Sangha. In myself I aspire to help all people build for full communities, to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Citing the sutras, practicing the way of awareness gives rise to benefits without limits. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to offer tribute. Parents, teachers, friends, and numerous beings who give guidance and support along the